Wes Anderson films are quirky, colorful, heartfelt, and above all else, great. Across his over 10 films, you can start to sense a distinct style from him. One that likely is inspired by famous French directors such as Truffaut, Renoir, and Godard, who've made some of his favorite films. The incredible comedy that is on full display in damn near every single one of Wes Anderson's pictures is the clearest answer to those who feel there is no good comedy in the last decade. While it is very much a distinct sense of humor, Anderson has quite possibly the funniest filmography of all time. Ranking his films is both no easy task and one that is perhaps faultless. While all his films are tremendous, they all bring something new to the table. If someone were to say just about any of his films were their particular favorite, I'd find no issue with that whatsoever. That's not to say I don't want to hear disagreements or your own personal opinions down below. I just find Wes Anderson to be that damn good. It's likely no surprise that to start this rankings, I have Bottle Rocket, Wes's first feature-length film. I will say this is among the funniest films Wes Anderson has to offer. Like other Hollywood elites who share the same last name, Anderson is able to have stars even in his first feature-length film, even if they weren't stars then. The Wilson brothers, Luke and Owen, played major roles in Bottle Rocket, with Owen getting a writing credit for the film. This movie doesn't have a distinct aesthetic as Anderson's films have now, but this gets offset slightly by the incredibly humorous set pieces and the heartfelt tale of finding your way in adulthood. Up next is Anderson's latest film, Asteroid City. Without doubt, the visual style is very much cemented at this point as we get the color palettes that have been long associated with Wes Anderson and are certainly shown in this film. To combine with this, we also get animated sequences inserted, which is something that had begun to pop up first in Anderson's Life Aquatic film, where I have Bottle Rocket slightly above consensus rating for its comedy. I have the same for Asteroid City due to it paying homage to the 50s era of cinema. Anderson shows countless instances of respect for different mediums in all of his films, which we'll cover in each film as it covers that particular medium. But here he shows the Cold War era mentality very well. We get the atomic bomb literally looming over the cast throughout the film. The paranoia and general government distrust is on full display. And to top it all off, we have the existentialism of there being others out there in space. This was brilliantly done, but to have both young and old perspectives as to the greater meaning of life baked in to this film made it a film I couldn't help but find great. Up next, we have Moonrise Kingdom. Just to head off general outrage, this film would in all likelihood be higher, maybe even in the top 5, if not for the weird underwear romance scene on the beach. Did I receive the message it was going for? The fumbly, nervous, and unpicturesque nature of love in our adolescence? I think I did, though it didn't remove the feelings of creepiness that I had while watching it. What I do love is how, again, Wes parallels the strife of younger characters with the adults in the same narrative. We have forbidden love looked at through the eyes of those growing up and those already grown. We get the limitations and rules of engagement from both sides and get to see where that takes us. This cascades into a climax that is emulated by the physical environment surrounding the characters in this film. I'll never obscure the genius that Wes Anderson possesses, and this film truly shows off his brilliance. Up next is Isle of Dogs. This is an insane mixture of Japanese flair, colorful and aesthetically pleasing stop motion, dry wit, and a heartfelt delivery, and most importantly, dogs. And I freaking love it. I didn't know I needed this as a Wes Anderson film for the last feature-length picture that I watched from his filmography, but damn, I'm glad it exists. It kind of feels like a film specifically tailored to check as many of my personal boxes as possible. As proof from my Japanese films ranked video, which you should check out, I have a taste for those kinds of films. And while this doesn't completely jump into samurai film territory as far as its style and everything about it, like its essence, it does have a flair, as I previously mentioned. Also, dogs are pretty much a cheat code to make me instantly empathize with characters, so this film has that going for it as well. I'm a little above consensus rating for this film, but I will hold that stance unapologetically. Up next is the Darjeeling Limited. Excuse my Indian. Again, this is another film that very much shows off Anderson's distinct visual style. And in fact, to get ahead of saying this for nearly every film that we're going to cover from here on out, Rushmore is really the only film that is slightly lacking in this aspect. So copy-paste distinct visual style for each film to come besides Rushmore. Though I know I'm going to hear in the comments, it has visual style. I'm talking from a color palette perspective. I would just really like the aesthetic of basically this film and every other film to come a little bit more than Rushmore, where it didn't stick out as much for me. What makes Darjeeling Limited so special, much like the aspect that makes Bottle Rocket great, is the comedic chemistry between Owen Wilson, Adrian Brody, and Jason Schwartzman. It hasn't been stated yet, though there's no better time than now, that Anderson's films generally have incredible casts that truly elevate the picture. While the comedy is certainly the highlight here, I do think that grief on behalf of our main characters is truly the nugget of gold at the center of this movie. I'm not sure whether it's because it makes me think to treasure the relationship that I have with my dad, but I feel it deeply when watching this film. And maybe that's just because I love my dad, and I do think through Wes Anderson's films you can actually kind of get that yearning for love and the love of his dad as well. Another thing that hasn't been mentioned is that you should subscribe to my channel. I have director rankings from the Russian czar himself, Andrei Tarkovsky. We got the giant of cinema, Stanley Kubrick, the spaghetti western king, Sergio Leone, and many more. If you like film half as much as I do, hit that subscribe button and bell icon so you don't miss what's next. And coming up next on this list is The French Dispatch. Do you remember when I said that Wes Anderson has a way of showing his love for different mediums? Well, this certainly shows it for writing, maybe specifically journalism, but I feel like even it works on a broader perspective as just writing. That love bleeds through so heavily, in fact, that it inspires even people like me who have rudimentary and extremely rough around the edges skills when it comes to writing to want to write. The eloquent nature to all the stories serve as this type of proficiency porn that is very gratifying to watch. On top of that, we have the story of Benicio del Toro's character in this film, and it's one of my favorite sections of any Wes Anderson film, meaning minute for minute, that whole story, I feel like I like better than any other, aspect of Wes Anderson. Like, you couldn't pull another 20 minutes out that I think would top that, in my personal opinion. Up next is Rushmore, and I know I kind of poo-pooed its aesthetic style, but let me just really give this film flowers for a moment, because it's one of the funniest films that Wes Anderson has ever put out, which is saying a lot, because all of his films are very funny. And on top of that, it's just one of the funniest films I've ever seen. While it doesn't have the strong aesthetic, as I mentioned previously, that many of his other films, Anderson's other films, have, I do feel the comedy is more than enough to offset that. Jason Schwartzman is impressive in this film, as it comes out when he is like, it came out while he was 18. I would imagine maybe filmed when he was 17. And that literally impresses the ever-loving hell out of me. The relationship between him and Murray is both amusing and very heartfelt at times. On top of that, there is a scene that it steals the show for me personally, and it might be something that you forgot and have watched this film, so it might go over your head, but it really struck me, and that was when Schwartzman introduced Murray to his father. It's this moment where Jason Schwartzman's character is no longer trying to hide his past and shows pride in who he and who his fathers, or who they are. And it was presented so clearly, this very touching moment, without like hitting us over the head with it. And I think it's moments like that that really show brilliance in writing and directing. This is an unsung hero amongst Wes Anderson's filmography, in my opinion. Coming in at number 4 is The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, which is just an amazing name, by the way. This is a film that combines the terrific comedy we get from Rushmore with that wonderful Wes Anderson aesthetic, which is really why it just beats out Rushmore by a hair. I find this to be among Anderson's funniest films, in the top, handful as far as look goes, and it has heartfelt moments, that being the emotional pull between Murray and Wilson. This may also be Murray's best role in Anderson's filmography, which is a big statement. It's hard to say definitively, but for that to even be a thought is really, it's a high accolade, because Bill Murray has some banging roles in all of Wes Anderson's films. That's for sure. And I could be swayed one way or another, but as Steven Zissou, it has an argument to at least be the best. For number 3, we have the Grand Budapest Hotel. To say this film is easy on the eyes would be an understatement. Ralph Fiennes completely steals the show in this cast that has more star power than most red carpets. To top it all off, the film has a tremendous emotional backbone that fully takes shape at the end of this film. It's a film that starts with a question, takes us on a tremendous journey to answer it, and left me speechless with the weight of the answer once given. The chemistry and relationship between Zero, Gustav, and Agatha, what make films like this, or any film, special. Up next is number 2, and that is Fantastic Mr. Fox. This film is the film that started me on a fast pass to infatuation with one Mr. Wes Anderson. The stop motion style was completely mesmerizing. There's no real way to describe it other than it is a complete visual spectacle. It's really funny for me personally to think that I held off on watching Wes Anderson's movies because I thought I'd hate it. This is a friendly reminder to try stuff when it comes to film. Worst case scenario, you might love it and find yourself trying to find times to finish all of their films. I'm not sure if this was the case, or a case rather, of having low expectations and then being so strongly, like the film so strongly exceeding expectations that I overranked it. But I think I'll always have a soft spot for this movie just because it got me started on Wes. I love the family dynamics, the humor, and above all else, the artistic talent that went into making this look so amazing. Last but not least, for those keeping track at home, is the Royal Tenenbaums. I have so much to say that it might be hard even starting to verbalize what I want to say about this film. Firstly, the dynamics of the father-child relationship really worked again because I love my father as well. No homo. Also, we get these completely deep and eccentric characters that make this world feel like one all its own. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Owen Wilson stealing the show when he wrecked his car into the house, because that legitimately, the whole sequence, not just the car wreck, but what ensued, made me burst out laughing. We then too get Luke Wilson's character doing the unthinkable. Like, that scene was one of the most visceral scenes out of Wes Anderson's entire filmography. Like, it shocked me, like I said, but I didn't even think Wes, not that he wasn't capable of it, but one, that he would go there and I don't know, it worked really well. And the fact that it's not something he does over and over again, it's why it made it in this one film where it happens so utterly shocking. There's also super heartfelt moments like Hackman and Stiller bonding finally, as well as Paltrow and Luke Wilson's secret love, which like both of those, the chemistry for both were super well done. And as it stands currently, oh, well, before we get there, I want to say I adore this film so much that even if, you know, I rewatched all of these movies and really looked into them and started comparing, contrasting, trying to re-rank everything, I just don't imagine ranking any other Anderson film above this one. But I do want to say all of them are great to masterpiece. It's just this one has a special place. I did, as I was first making this list, consider Fantastic Mr. Fox, but the Royal Tenenbaums just hit me in a spot that it's got to be number one. It really does. As it currently stands, I have Wes Anderson as a top 10 all-time director in my rankings, which will be made into a video at some point. Just trying to get a ton of directors and watch a lot of movies from those directors before making a full video. But he's a director I'm damn glad I checked out. What's your personal rankings? Any film I'm way too high on or way too low on? Send me your rankings in the comments down below. Also, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon. I appreciate all of the subscribers recently, as you got me over 1,000. It's a huge milestone, and I am always motivated by seeing your kind words and comments down below. So I appreciate it. Thank you for joining me for this one, and I will catch you on the flippity floop. Bye, y'all.